on this week's episode of The Chris and Andre Show.
It's time for politics.
We got trolled on Twitter over the weekend.
It's a good old-fashioned troll job.
Yeah, it was amazing. The guy almost sucked me into to actually reacting and calling him stupid. And I was just like, I came this close, but I was like, no, I just can't do it. But I want to just go on a record saying that we are not and it's not a disclaimer. It's just like the actual truth. It's not about partisanship with this show, or I never have conversations with my kids about, right versus wrong per party. It's about what's the right thing to do. Myself personally, I've registered in both parties, and currently I'm now independent. And to be quite honest with you, I voted more Republican than I have Democrat in my entire voting history, but never a straight ticket. So what I find interesting is and I find sad, is the majority of people in these little corners of the internet, they prove the points of fringe people having opinions about politics that sway political views. So I just wanted to kind of get that out of my system. I actually having some time to think about how I felt about it. I'm like, yeah, that's about right. So
I just kind of laughed, looking at it, how did this guy find us? I should say person. I shouldn't assume that the picture in the profile is necessarily him.
That's a dude.
But he came across as a dude, that's for sure. But yeah, I started I started thinking, of all the things, of all the podcasts out there that are probably talking about this kind of stuff, or people in general, why ours all of a sudden? It's certainly not the first time that we've talked about the connection between racism and Republicans, or the GOP, and I'm sure it won't be the last. I mean, hell, we're talking about it right now. But it's, I just, it was one of I was similar in that I saw the replies and I was like, oh, Twitter engagement. And then I read what they were and I was like, oh, it's an asshole. And I started reading and I was just like, wait a second. Who is this guy that he's even claiming that, Biden eulogizes Ernest Hollings? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. He was a senator who was pro-segregation in South Carolina, who once they lost out in the courts was like, all right, that's it. We don't have a choice. We have to integrate, and has now gone back and said, yeah, I knew it was wrong at the time. I'm not going to pretend like I didn't. And this guy was like, oh, so you can apologize and then it's okay. And it's like, well, in a sense, yes. If you mean it, but, and I mean, it's not like you've ever heard Trump or any of the other Republicans actually apologize for any of the horrible things that they do and say on a regular basis. But I don't know. It's just, I'm with you in that, as pro-Democrat as we may come across sometimes, we're not card carrying, I'm not carrying their flag. It's,
no,
I'm
literally about to shit all over Joe Biden right now.
The Democrats themselves have a long ways to go, right? I think that's where I'm always confused, and that it's I don't know. Maybe some people feel like we were overly critical of Trump and that we aren't being as critical of Joe Biden, but
sure. But I'll say this, when it comes to that argument, it wasn't that I started out of the gate of saying Trump was a terrible president. I gave him some time to actually get his feet wet in the job.
I even think in one of our early episodes, we were like, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I expected the world to be over by now, and we're still standing. So, I mean, he's got that going for him.
Yeah, we're not all dead. So,
and then the pandemic hit.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, not to, I'll be clear. It's never about partisanship for me. I'll be honest, my personal life, I don't, my son can attest. I don't necessarily agree with everything that my kids do, but I just want to,
No, definitely not.
I'll be like, hey, this is what I think. I don't expect you to change your opinion. I just want to share my thoughts on it, and then I move on. Right, Matt?
Yeah, definitely fair in that sense, where you're not trying to really prove a point or get to an answer. There's more, the purpose of the conversation is to deepen the understanding of each person's point of view. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of politics, I think what we're getting, it all lines up with what the job is. So, and nothing surprises me when it comes from this group of individuals, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
To hear the rest, tune into this week's episode of The Chris and Andre Show.